Right, call to order the Vermillion Parish School Board Workshop number 2, Monday, January 13, 2025. Roll call, Mr. Superintendent.
Mr. Roy is absent. Ms. Datros is absent. Dr. Dupuy?
Present.
Mr. Hebert?
Here.
Mr. Moak?
Here.
Mr. Myers?
Here.
Mr. Pilet is absent. Mr. Stelly?
Here.
And Mr. Tucci.
Here.
We do have a quorum. This is a non-voting meeting, but we do have a quorum of members.
At this time, I'd ask everyone to please rise. I'd ask everyone to please bow your heads for a moment of silence for Mrs. Charlotte Datros. Please remember her mother who passed. So keep them in your thoughts and prayers, please. Mr. Johnson, Pledge of Allegiance, sir.
Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. At this time, Superintendent's Vision 2030 presentation. If I'm correct, Mr. Byron, please. If you do have questions, please, I will direct that. So maybe if you have any questions, raise your hand, you'll be acknowledged, and we'll go from there.
Thank you, Mr. Dupuy. Just want to kind of set a couple of things, and you have the slides that were done last week. There are going to be a couple of additional slides in here that I can get you copies for, but if you feel like, hey, I'm missing something, you may be missing one or two slides. I do want to make sure, I want to kind of set the tone for this. The Vision 2030 project has been, we've talked about a lot of different things. We've talked about things here and there, and you guys kind of asked, and we kind of, if you remember, we've been doing kind of our vision for the year, the last couple of years. But I felt that we're at a crossroads in public education. We're at a crossroads in the district. I want to make sure everybody understands this first and foremost. We are not in a financial crisis. We are not in any type of struggle at the current moment. I can't tell you we will be in 2030. I can't tell you that we won't be. And so as we look at these things, I want to make sure you understand that this is not a situation where we are in dire straits that tomorrow we need to go make changes. But I also want us to also start, we've talked about a lot of things for a long time. What are the things that we need to move forward and step up and talk about? So with that being said, I just want to set the workshop norms and understand that when we're talking a workshop, guys, this is not a formal situation. We're not taking a vote. We're recording everything. I actually want questions because I want the questions. I'm not going to sit here and tell you I have the answers for all of them, but I want those questions as guiding steps for me to move forward on what are we looking at? Where do our committees go? What are our committees looking at? And so those are conversations. So I just want to read these norms. The information in the presentation for discussion and potential planning purposes with the timeline of 2030 as our target line. We just said Vision 2030. Its outline is presented, but it's meant to prompt discussion among board members. Questions will be allowed. The audience, we're not required to take their comments because there's no vote being taken. But I am super proud of the folks that showed up, and I asked our administrators and told them I'm presenting it, and they wanted to hear it straightforward from me to show up. And so I am going to give the respect to the audience that are here. If you do have a question, wait for the proper time in the sense of you'll see some stopping points. Think about it. Raise your hand. Like I said, Dr. Dupuy will recognize you. It is not a voting meeting, so you are allowed, if you want to ask a question from your chair, that is allowed tonight. We don't have to follow that rule. No votes being taken. Some of the suggestions are this, that. They are suggestions for conversation, and this has been a labor of love. And so I want you to understand that as we go, we are going to have official minutes, proper meeting decorum. Dr. Dupuy has volunteered to take charge of manning the questions. And he will recognize board members as well as the audience to speak on any topic. Tonight, we're going to cover 4 topics: an enrollment overview, which you have a copy of a good portion of it, a facilities overview, some financial concerns, as well as some organizational shifts. Those are the 4 areas. You don't have copies of some of the pieces, but you have most of it. I will get you copies. In section 1, enrollment projections, and the way I have this broken down is by feeder system. And so I will stop after each feeder system so that we can kind of talk about what that looks like. But currently in Vermilion Parish, we are 20 school systems. We are 20 schools. We have 1 school that's 750 or greater, that being North Vermilion High School. We have 8 schools that are between 500 and 749, LeBlanc, EHS, Dozier, Abbeville, North Vermilion, Kaplan Elementary, Cecil Pequard. We've got 7 of them between 250 and 499, and we've got 5 of them with 249 people or less. That is just the current makeup today of our school system. In this section of the presentation, what I'm going to give you is a historical from 21-22 all the way to a projected 29-30 look. I'm also going to give you some specific enrollments in some certain areas for some certain schools, some potential reconfigurations. If we decided, hey, how can we better use our buildings? We'll talk about that, and some potential moves based on number of students. Again, suggestions that have come from conversations. Nothing is set in stone. Nothing is saying we're doing this. Nothing is saying that the headlines should say, school system doing this, this, and this. My point being that I want robust discussions and conversations from this. So, on these school systems, when you see something highlighted in purple, that means we are at over 90% capacity at that school, meaning what we have there. So, you'll see. So what you see for each one, when you look at Eaton Park, Harris, 7th Ward, LeBlanc, JH, and Abbeville, this is our Abbeville feeder system. You'll see starting in 21-22, the highlighted blue section is what our current enrollments are. And the 29-30 section are the projected enrollments. The only thing, as you see the highlights on the bottom, those are pure projections. I can't absolutely figure it out, but I'm pretty good at figuring where we are. Eaton Park currently at 384, was at 452. We project by 29-30 about 380. Our enrollment there is kind of settled. Harrod was at 338. We're currently at 294, and it's projected at 315. It's kind of where we sit for Harrod. 7th Ward was at 230. It currently sits at 168. And will continue and probably stay around 160 without any adjustments. LeBlanc was at 671, currently at 638, projected about 630. I don't see any major shifts either way at LeBlanc. J.H. Williams was at 453, currently at 375, projected at 400. We'll see a little bit of a jump at J.H. Williams. We're losing a couple small classes, gaining a little bit more. So I do expect a small projected jump at J.H. Williams, but not a lot. Abbeville High was at 552. Currently, it's at 582. We saw a little bit of growth, but we will see a decline by 29-30 to about 510. So that's just the projection numbers there. A summary of our Abbeville schools. And when I talk about the LeBlanc, it's the LeBlanc portion. I'll tell you exactly who goes from LeBlanc to J.H. Williams. So in 21-22, we are approximately 2,185 students. Current enrollment, 1,925 students. We've seen a 12% decrease in our population in Abbeville. By 29-30, we're talking 1,885 students, which is a 14% decrease from the original number. It's a 2% decrease from now till then. We don't see our numbers in Abbeville dropping like they did, but we have seen a major decline in our Abbeville feeder systems. I want to share this with you. This is the current location of our 7th Ward students. There's been conversations, and obviously 7th Ward, for our Abbeville, all of our feeder systems have an outlier. 7th Ward is our Abbeville outlier. Indian Bayou is our North Vermilion outlier. FIB is our Kaplan outlier. Like, so we have things in places, but I want you to see, so the current enrollment. I have it broken down. You can see our current enrollment of 167. By grade level, when I tell you north of South State Street, meaning if I go to South State, Jacqueline, and north of that, across from Robbie's, across from Champagne's, that area, 58 of our 167 students come from the Abbeville area that we're sending to 7th Ward. From between South State and the school, we have 80 students. South of the school, we have 9 students. We have 2 transfers. We do have 18 addresses that are unknown. I think the majority of those 18 are actually around the school or south. They just don't necessarily jump on our maps because our maps aren't picking them up. But Tony's going to figure out where those 18 students are for me. That's one of their next tasks. And so I just want you to kind of see what we're talking about at 7th Ward, where those students are coming from. By the same token, I want you to look at LeBlanc and Abbeville. This is the portion of LeBlanc that is zoned to go to J.H. Williams. So when they're zoned to go to J.H. Williams, I'm counting that group of kids as an Abbeville feeder. It's only 122 students. And so I hear all the time, well, LeBlanc's overcrowded, but we're sending all these kids from Abbeville. No, we're sending about 1/5 of the population. The northern part of the parish, what's the Champagne Estates, the trailer park,
Cupcake.
what is it?
Cupcake.
Cupcake, and what's the other one?
Sucre?
No, Sucre goes after. What's the other ERAF one? Help me out. The trailer.
You have Champagne Estate and Cupcake Trailer.
And you have Iberia?
No, it's on the Lafayette. It'll come to me after a while. But that area is growing, as is the area. We also picked up some kids in that Iberia line switch, that gray zone. They are no longer gray zone. We've picked up a few that come into the LeBlanc area. But we have 122 kids that are currently zoned. And so I know every year people are telling me like, well, all the kids are going to ERAF Middle and they're not going to J.H. Williams. They're not zoned for J.H. Williams. West of 82, meaning North State, west of that. On the Kaplan side, we have 10 students. Okay? When I say north of Jane Street, you go to Jane Street, north of that, we have 10 students. 28 students. Between Abbeville High and 82, we have 94 students. That takes in most of Sucre Circle, that group of kids. Why I'm telling you that is we start looking at potential shifts of enrollment and we look at a dozier that is at capacity, we could have to move some of those kids back into our Abbeville school zone and move the dozier line further, the LeBlanc line would have to come a little further south, and move some of those kids because we need to move some kids out of dozier if it continues in the patterns that we are. 1 second, I'm going to get to one more slide, Mr. Chris. And there's 2 transfers. The configuration of Abbeville School, I'm just throwing these out there as next step conversations. I'm looking at Abbeville High as a 9 to 12 school, potential 8 to 12 school, a potential 7 to 12 school. My preference, keep it 9 to 12. But I'm throwing these out there. I'm looking at J.H. Williams as a 6 to 8 school. I'm looking at J.H. Williams as a 5 to 8 school, following the model of Renee Ross. I'm looking at it as a 5 to 7. I'm looking at it as a 4 to 6. My preference, I'm going to be honest with you, is to move 5th grade to J.H. Williams and make J.H. Williams a 5 to 8 school, putting a few more people there and reconfiguring some things. Herod, I have it looking as a 3-5 school currently, a pre-K 3 school, a pre-K 4 school, a pre-K 5 school. I'm looking at Eaton Park only as its current pre-K 2 structure, and I'm looking at 7th Ward as a pre-K 5. If you look at the chart, if no changes happen, next year we're looking at 595 at Abbeville High, 370 at JH, 304 at Herod, 382. Do I think any changes can happen between now and August? Honestly, no. But I think moving forward within a year, I feel like we can do that. This is just, and I'm not going to go over all these, this is just the configurations of 26, 27, 27, 28. If you ask me what is my absolute preference for grade configurations that makes the most sense to me sitting here as the superintendent, it is pre-K 4 at Herod, 5-8 at J.H. Williams, 9-12 at Abbeville High, repurposing Eaton Park Elementary into our multi-purpose virtual school, virtual Vermillion, our alternative school, get it off of campuses and move it to an individual site. Our early childhood moves there, and child nutrition moves there, where we have place to expand freezers and those type things. So I'll give you some more things. Mr. Avery, I know you had a question, so while we're on there.
My question, when LeBlanc opened, they had an overcrowded in Abbeville that some of those kids came, or just closer for those kids to come to LeBlanc, or?
I think, I mean, I wasn't here. LeBlanc's enrollment actually was higher when we started. Then they rezoned it and they adjusted again. I can't really tell you why. I think they just redrew the lines because at the same time, we also reconfigured Eaton Park and Herod and broke it from 2 elementaries to 1. And so I don't know the thinking behind all that went there. It is a simple, it's a simple shot to LeBlanc. You're going to talk to our people and they're going to tell you that LeBlanc presents to us one of our most efficient schools in the sense of it's the real world. The diversity, the difference, the programs, everything, it's there. My only issue that I would ever consider wanting to move them out is if we're getting to the point where Dozier is kind of at its, and I'm stuck at Dozier because I can't, there's nowhere to go outside the wall. And so any additions to Dozier, so that enrollment shift, we're going to talk about that as we go.
What took place this year when the kids came over?
Well,
and we had to find a room
we'll talk about that, yeah.
And we used the closet.
And when we get to the Dozier, we'll get to ERAF, you'll see those conversations. So these are the grade configurations. Herod can handle 581 with a little bit of fixing up, and I'll show you some of those things. So possible facility shifts in Abbeville, just throwing these out there. Scenario number 1, repurpose Eaton Park. Reconfigure schools, moving 5th grade to J.H. Williams, move EPE to Herod facility. Addition would be necessary. There would be an addition, a small addition that would be necessary. Eaton Park becomes virtual Vermillion alternative early childhood, child nutrition facility. That closes the Regina Street facility that we're paying for. It also allows us to potentially sell the Charity Street virtual school location. I think on Charity Street would be one of the more potential sales of a building that we might. I also in this scenario, I feel like we need to take the line into Abbeville a little bit further and send 60 to 80 kids to 7th Ward. That's my Like, I don't think we can sit here and financially, be fiscally responsible and keep a school open with 160. But it's a quality school. The utility cost is not a lot. It's one of our better, most efficient because it's under one building. The success rate with our kids that come from these areas is great. It's one of our highest achieving schools. Plus, it does. I mean, we do have those outliers far, far away. And so, as we look at that, if we get to Herod and say, this is the certain number we have, it would be my suggestion that I don't think we can repurpose 7th Ward. We're not moving our structures. We're not moving child nutrition to 7th Ward. That doesn't make sense fiscally. We're not moving alternative out there. We can't move virtual out there because it's not conducive to the audience we need. And so it is my recommendation, if somebody said, I need you to make a recommendation right now, it would be to repurpose Eaton Park and send more students to 7th Ward, keeping that number. That's just, but again, it's conversation starters. That's it. So at this time, questions on Abbeville feeder enrollment from here, or the audience, or Mr. Dupuy, I'll let you take and run it from there.
Any board members? Have any thoughts? I know, just for me, from years ago, talking about conversation, we did at one time have a number of students from Abbeville go to 7th Ward. And in its moment, and I guess other decisions were made, some of that didn't last very long. Not saying it can't be done, not saying it shouldn't be done, but right here, when you look at closing Regina, closing Charity, get that off our backs, some more liability, things we don't have to pay for. And it's a wonderful facility. 7th Ward is a wonderful facility. I'll compare it to Jesse Owens because it's another one of the better facilities that we have. It's all under one roof. It's more efficient, more workable. But we've done it before, but I think it just wasn't, how you say, it wasn't managed well. And I'm not talking about the school, the way it occurred and how we put students there. It wasn't managed and monitored. Not saying it can't be done, but that would be something that I would, as a, looking back in the past, make sure it's monitored, done, properly.
I think all of our school systems, I mean, when I look at the facility, I need to fill the classrooms.
Yes.
And when I look at, now, with that comes additional resources for that school if we ever move that way. I mean, it can't run under its current, I mean, Miss Marlene good, but she only 80 kids by herself. But my point being is, we have to look at it a different way. But I feel like that's the best use of what we have in the Abbeville feeder system. I think there's, again, where are we with that? Where are we looking at? We'll meet those conversations.
Any questions from the audience, please? Anyone have any concerns? Go ahead, Mr. Pop.
We're good. Looking at our ERAF facilities, you will see, right now we're in a current uptick. It does settle back down. You will see that 3 of our 4 schools are currently at that enrollment level. Dozier, you'll see, was at 560. It's currently at 561. It will throttle about 550. Dozier still has a little bit of room, but not much. But we're also moving special education facilities there, and so we've got to address that need. But we also need to walk around that campus and look on that campus and say, okay, where is there potential for any kind of growth? And understand we're behind the wall. Now, can a raised building be built outside the wall? I don't know. But we have to look at all of those options. LeBlanc, again, is just a repeat. I have the total number. You'll see later I broke it into what actually goes to ERAF. ERAF Middle is at 460. They're currently at 466. They were as high as 533 and survived. They're currently at my projection 465. ERAF Middle can handle, we'll talk a little bit more. ERAF High is going to put us in a little bit of a bind in the sense that they were at 534. They're currently at 561, but we're getting ready to see the influx where you see that 533 at ERAF Middle. That's a 3-grade configuration. That 533 is now next year going to be those 3 grades at Erath High, plus another large class. It throttles down, but it was the largest groups there. We are already in the process. We are moving 2 portable buildings to Erath. We have no choice. We've already measured it. We've already started. We've talked to the crane company. Can they lift it over the wall? We don't have any choice for next year. Like it has to start happening. That's something that we've already went and measured that I can't really wait on that. Erath Feeder School System, 2,064 students in 21-22. Currently with a 1.6% increase, 2098. Approximately a 4.9% increase by 2930. 3.2 increase from right now. We will have around 2,200 for around 1 to 2 years between now and 2030. We hit a little balloon and then it kind of settles back. The Erath Feeder System, again, we can move student zone for J.H. Williams back to Herod if we decide to make that a K-4 school. That allows for maybe a little bit of relief, sending a little bit of Dozier up to LeBlanc. That's just one of the only really zone shifts, immediate zone shifts that really come into play. Again, we're only talking enrollment right now. The other parts of the project will address things. Any questions on Erath?
Board members? I just got, on the 2 buildings, Tommy. Inside the wall,
Yes,
definitely.
yes, sir.
Audience, anyone from the audience? All right, Mr. Bott.
Kaplan, you'll see, Kaplan Elementary is our only school in the Kaplan feeder system that is at what I consider capacity, 85 to 90% building use. FIB, Renee Ross, and Kaplan High. Kaplan Elementary, you'll see, was at 545. They're actually at their largest enrollment ever right now, 558. You have to remember that Kaplan Elementary is a pre-K4 school. Per capita, Kaplan Elementary is our largest school. Currently, right now, I know like people forget that there's a whole grade missing at Kaplan Elementary. FIB was at 240. They're currently at 248, but it does project down to 210. We're getting into some class levels that kind of drop off. Renee Ross was at 402, currently at 361. The projection, because Kaplan Elementary is going through a little bit of a bubble, Renee Ross does kind of come back up. I think Renee Ross will settle between 390 and 420 as where it will end up. Kaplan High was at 520. They'll bubble to 530. They will go down to about 484 at the end of the 29-30 school year because Renee Ross went through a 3-year window, but they were really low. So Kaplan High will go down a little bit as well. So that's our numbers for the Kaplan area. The feeder system as a whole was at 1,707 students in 21-22. Currently at 1,697, about a 0.6% decrease. 29-30, we see another 2.9% decrease. I will stand up here and tell you that Kaplan's feeder system is the hardest to project. Of any school system, Kaplan is the one that we might miss. Like we might miss a projected 520 becomes 540. We might miss a projected because there's a large rental population in the Kaplan area. And so there are times where we may see a influx out of Abbeville and into Kaplan. And we may vice versa. Like there is some Kaplan, and I've been doing this a long time, Kaplan is the one that my numbers, when I start following throughout the year, is the one place that there's a little more deviation than normal. Just some ideas. I don't say this is the best scenario, but I wanted to look at all of them. The potential to move 8th grade from FIEB and Kaplan and Renee Ross to Kaplan High and make it an 8-12 school. Not necessary, because I don't think it gives us anything, but potentially if we make some other moves, it could. Do we move the 5th, 6th, and 7th grade from FIEB to Renee Ross? We're currently struggling to hold athletic programs. But with that in mind, alleviate some of the overcrowding from Kaplan Elementary by moving that K-5 population we got kids that go from FIB to Kaplan. I think there's about a pocket of 70 to 80 kids that could go to FIB K5. Again, utilizing that facility, and taking away a K8 facility. As we talk later about accountability, we start talking about evaluate, that is a whole different ballgame. And so just ideas, for the Kaplan feeder system, nothing set in stone. And really, not really a fan of any of those. But how do I get more kids at FIEB? It's the outliers, like I can't send 4 buses to pick up way south to get our kids. FIEB is a great school, it does well. How can we put a few more kids there? That's my ultimate. And I know people are like, well, why would just, I don't think it's a smart move to close our schools south. Yes, it might cost us a little bit more, but we have 3/4 of our parish south of Highway 14, but that would mean no schools south of Highway 14. Not the best use of it, but I feel like it's a necessity. I feel like we got to figure out a way to get some more students there because it's 2 of our nicest facilities. That's just food for thought. Questions on the Kaplan enrollments?
Audience, any questions? I have a comment like you. Some years ago, we had talked about Rene Ross and E. Broussard and bringing 6, 7, 8 from E. Broussard to Rene Ross and taking the 5th grade and of course taking Kaplan Elementary and E. Broussard and moving the overflow and trying to balance both schools best we could. So that was an option we had discussed years ago, but like usual, went on the shelf and it was not discussed. Is it possible? Could be, I don't know.
The other scenario I didn't put yet. The other scenario is that Moe Elementary doesn't become an automatic feeder school to North Vermilion. Moe Elementary has only 280 kids after the charter school. It can house 400 kids. There's a large portion that's not very far that could go to Moe Elementary and then return back to Rene Ross if we want to make Kaplan Elementary a little bit more feasible with the numbers. I didn't throw that out there, but we have, if we ever make the decision that we're not feeder school driven, that's what causes a lot of our problems. A lot of our problems are, North Vermilion High has kids from far away. It's because the kids started far away to go to Moe, because it was the closest thing to Moe. Well, now when you start drawing, it's closer to Abbeville and it's closer to Kaplan,
Yes.
but because they went to Moe, they automatically go. And so I think we have to look at that in the sense of how do we utilize Moe? I mean, we're 120 kids down. Moe might have took the biggest lick percentage-wise from the charter school. That's just, and we'll talk about them in a second. Gaydon, you'll look 190 and 21-22, currently at 183, projection at 180 for Jesse Owens. Gaydon in 21-22 had 227 in the high school, currently at 188, projected at 185. 11% decrease from 21-22, 12.5% decrease is projected by 29-30. I'm just gonna put it out there. I think the most feasible thing there, if we decide to up and start moving anything and we get in a situation we need to, we combine Gaydon to make it a K-12 school and we put the adequate, do we need to move anything there? The schools have also started looking at that. The administrators have looked and measured classrooms and looked at classrooms and without a whole lot of adjustments, potential. Gaydon feedback.
Well, Gaydon is, how you say it, not part of Vermilion Parish. Some people truly believe that. You'd be amazed at how many people think they belong to everybody else. We're in a position that if you would think about, because they always talked about it for years and years, close Gaydon High. First thing, close Gaydon High. Close it, shut it down. But there's a problem. All of our kids are either going to Jeff Davis, or they're going to end up going to the big one right now, which is hot as a firecracker, Midland High School. So you'd be paying more money shipping our kids out and if you keep them right there at Gator High. But the combination school, the K through 12, could be an answer to the situation economically, feasibly, with paperwork.
And,
Because
you know,
like usual, it's a community school. Don't wanna lose your community school.
and the conversations, and I am very, very, and recognize that, I mean, the Jesse Owens name means something. And so how do you, how do you add, I mean, how do you make Jesse Owens the name part of, you know,
By the way, it's not Jesse Owens, the Olympics.
we,
That's not who the school is named after. That was Mr. Owens, who was a longtime educator, African American. They really moved to build that school for the African Americans and the white population of Gaydon. He has family still in California. So it's not Jesse Owens the sprinter, it's Jesse Owens from Gaydon.
Yeah.
Mr. Mo?
What would it take to, physical plant-wise, to accommodate, at Gaydon High, accommodate the students from Jesse Woods?
not a lot. Probably, my suggestion, I mean, you're gonna see later in the present, my suggestion is we don't necessarily look at portable buildings, but I think you look at a modular, like some of the modulars we put at an North Vermillion Middle, a Cecil Picard, something with a little bit where I could put a decent facade. I think the office needs to move to the side street, and that area right there, you're talking a total of 347 students.
That would give you some separation from the high school and.
Yeah, definitely would, and when you see it a little bit later, and, you know, I mean, somebody asked a question, I think, Kevin, when you had asked, what is the fiscal saving by closing the school? There's a lot of factors that go into that. It's a utility, it's not necessarily teachers, some teachers. I think the middle school and high school where we're struggling to find teachers, I think we could find a fifth grade teacher who could possibly help there. But support personnel, you don't have to run 2 cafeteria staffs. You can probably squeeze it down to 3 janitors instead of 6. You could probably, you know, and so there's some.
We have a brand new cafeteria.
I know. So those are there's some situations in Gaydon, kind of just letting you know. North Vermillion area, you will see, and I'm gonna be honest with you, this is the one that is still kind of up in the air. We've lost a lot of population and we could potentially still lose some more. The only school right now that's sitting at 85% capacity or higher is North Vermillion High. Cecil Picard at its peak was at 831 in 21-22. That was actually the highest enrollment. We currently sit at 610. Projection numbers, Cecil Picard 2930 is 509. Now, people are like, well, people have to understand that you now have to start adding the bottom grades. The bottom grades have already lost some to charter school. And so we're not losing more to charter school, but now the numbers start adding up. You know, we're losing groups of 160 and we're going to replace it with 100. You know, so that's where you're going to see that bubble there. Mo Elementary was at 401, it's currently at 288, projected at 289. Indian Bayou was at 216, it's currently at 218. Don't see much fluctuation in Indian Bayou, 208. Indian Bayou lost the least amount of kids to the charter school, being the closest to it. That community, and then again, that's one of those communities that I think you have to figure out how can we move more kids there. There are kids that go to Kaplan Elementary that could potentially go there as well on that further. You know, so there's some slight movements. North Vermillion Middle was at 647, is currently at 533, projected 2930 to 490. When that Cecil Picard, the movement, I mean, it's going to go down, not that they're losing more students, it's just that attrition, the pockets of groups will get there. North Vermillion High was at 808, currently at 794, projected 2930 with the numbers in our system at 685 without the opening of the charter high school. The charter high school plans to open a freshman next year. plus another section of K to 5. I feel like that's still an area that we have to just sit and watch. I feel like we are doing some great things at some of these schools. But again, school choice is school choice. We've cut a lot this year. We cut a lot. We'll probably have to continue cutting some, but we're gonna balance the numbers there. But that's what our numbers look like in North Vermillion. Approximately 2,900 students, 2925 was our highest in that 10-year period. Currently, we're at 2443, 15.9% decrease, post-elementary charter. Approximately 2930, 2182, which is a 25% decrease, another 10% decrease. These are projections without the high school charter effect. So, I mean, that's the area that we'll have to sit and watch, and one of the reasons that we have to be looking at some of the other things. The North Vermillion feeder system, we have 2 schools with less than 300 students. Movement in these communities, however, I think affect charter enrollment. Doing anything in Indian Bayou and Mo fills all those seats at the charter school. I'm just being, I feel like we lost the population. We're working on keeping what we have, and I think we're doing a great job of it. They come back to us, the next one on the waiting list goes. They come back to us, and so again, we can only control what we can control. Cecil Peak Guard students, if we decide that we want to make a decision and we want to move portables, Cecil Peak Guard does have the potential, if we get down and we move a few more students to Indian Bayou and Mo, the portable building, the portable walkway, the portable set in the back is a set that could be moved to Gaydon, if all those pieces fall into place. Now, how do we, and the question is always, how do we take into account the subdivisions that are still going up in Maurice? We're gonna get some, charter's gonna get some. Again, I think it's a year by year. I think we were right on with our projections. I think we'll see again in a year where we go. Questions on the North Vermillion feeder, board members?
Coach Violet, have you found any accurate data on how many more subdivisions are actually coming?
Nope, but we're gonna write that question down and we'll reach out to the mayor. I think 3 or 4 was the last that I was told.
I can tell you some intel that I've been receiving is it's gonna go more towards Indian Bayou.
I think that's the next set of rock.
After it's done in Maurice, it's
I
gonna
think
shift
that's the
that
next
way.
set.
Which you still have to, it's gonna be a 50-50, some are gonna go public, some are gonna go charter. But I think that we unfortunately gonna have to keep watching.
I will tell you this, though, I stand here pretty confident, and I've got 2 principals here from 2 schools that have to fight the charter and they're in straight competition, and neither one of them are afraid of the challenge. And they're putting their best foot forward and doing everything they can. Like, they're promoting their schools, and they're doing things at their schools that we can't do anything more. People are gonna make their choice. You know, and so, again, but that's where we are on the enrollment. I just wanted to show you that's where the numbers are. I'll take any last general questions on enrollment from anybody, if anybody has questions. Yes, sir.
What's the biggest concern in enrollment?
The biggest concern in enrollment is there's still some uncertainties. Still some uncertainties with charters, and what do we do to try to better utilize our facilities to get more of them in that 70 to 80% range? And again, being a feeder school system, as we currently are, that plays it kind of drives some of why some buildings are underutilized. You know, I mean, we know, population in Abbeville is down 10,000 from the last census. Well, I mean, we lost 300 students and 10,000 less populations. I think we're actually doing pretty good percentage-wise. But we got to fix those things. We got to up the scores in Abbeville, and that's going to be a fight because the new accountability system is going to be a challenge. And so, my biggest concern is what we currently have. I'm projecting everything on 8,000 students. We were at 9,100 a year ago. My projection by 2030, my projection is that we need to figure everything based on 8,000 students. How do you run your system with 8,000 students compared to 9,100? $10 million chunk off the top from MFP. We know that. Well, we've actually covered some of that cost. We'll have to do some things differently. And again, as I stated before, we're not in a financial crunch, but I think you have to watch it and you have to have a plan in place of what's our next steps. What do we do if, we're gonna get our MFP adjustment in the coming weeks in February. We have a projection, but if the state comes back with some completely different numbers, then we may be going back to the drawing board again. Mr. Moore?
Tell me, what would a non-feeder school system look like to you? You're not talking about the wild, wild west on it.
No, I feel like Mo Elementary is the wild part. It sits in an area there. LeBlanc currently is doing it. I feel like 7th Ward to some extent, when they get to some of them could go to FIEB.
Would it
Some of
be
them
just
could
like
go.
expanding the feeder area?
I think the whole elementary zone is your zone, and then you have the zone for your middle schools, and you have the zone for your high schools.
Got you.
There's some, when you look at the North Vermillion High School zone, I think the attrition of charters is going to take care of that. But if you got to 900 or 1,000, we'd have no choice. We would have had to say, you can go to Indian Bayou, but you can't go to North Vermillion Middle. You gotta go to Renee Ross. You can go to Mo, but you gotta go your zone. So that would be the only thing that I think it eventually, you get to North Vermillion High School, you got a lot of kids, but they're from a large area. It's not a real, it's just, and it's only because of the feeder zones. It's not because we want all these kids to go to North Vermillion, but it's always been, Mo goes to North Vermillion, Indian Bayou goes to North Vermillion, Cecil Pequard goes to North Vermillion Middle. And again, you have to understand, that was done when it was a 7 through 12, it was a 7 through 12 high school. That's where you went. And they only had 480 kids. So the 3 schools went, there was still 480 kids. Wasn't a problem. Well, when you get to 800, 900, but again, I think the charter school has settled that number. And so I think what was yes, it's a financial hit to us, but the original intention of the charter school was to, help the overcrowding in the northern part of the parish, and guess what? It's gonna do what it intended to do. Whether it was with us or without us, there are people who are going to go there. My bigger concern about the high school is the high school gonna draw from our other high schools? We have some high schools that are struggling for enrollment. Are we gonna lose some of those to the charter? That is my concern. ESA vouchers is my concern. When we start paying them, they can go to VC. What are we doing in Abbeville to keep them? So there's a lot of things on the table when it comes to that. So, moving on, the second package you have, the facility upgrades discussion. Guys, these are just ideas you've talked about, I've talked about. If you have more, please add them. Principals, if yours says no change and there's something like, I wish you would consider this, please do not be afraid to throw that out tonight. Not you, Ms. Ford, because I already see you got 6 things in your head. So, but if you have something that this is just off the top of my head. Abbeville High, bathroom attached gym, the removal of portables that house alternative and sped. Again, that's my projections if we follow through with some other pieces. Create a long-term plan for the space behind the school to create a football facility, long term. Survey and sample for potential turf field with portable bleachers. They're not getting a stadium, But I look at what we did, I look at what they did at Westgate and New Iberia Senior High. It was a 10-year project. They put the field, they added a set of bleachers, they added a set of bleachers, they added a set of bleachers. I mean, I'm just, again, Vision 2030, throwing those out there. And there's a section of gym bleachers, those are just the facility things that I see off the cuff from just walkthroughs. Abbeville High, any other questions on that? J.H. Williams is all Abbeville feeders. Perimeter changes in conjunction with the City of Abbeville and the Lyman Street project. I sit on the planning commission as well with the Abbeville, they're doing that project that everybody talks about and tries to bash. But they have the next phase of that project is the Lyman Street extension.
Yeah.
Widening the roads,
Sidewalks.
better with the fencing and the sidewalks and the better lighting. We have talked with them already that if that project takes place, the school is 100% all in and becoming part of that project. Even if that means they run into our school property, the fencing changes, the trees, whatever. So in conjunction with them, and then the other things, I think we need to fix the parking lot area for stadium activities. Like the majority of our problems happen because people park on the streets. We have 2 perfectly fine parking areas that just need a little bit of attention. Herod, my vision is to turn it into the primary elementary school in Abbeville. Remove the alternative portables. If you're looking at Herod, you have the multi-purpose building, and then you got 4 portables. My vision is to remove those. My vision is to build an administrative wing and add 10 classrooms. The administrative wing there causes some of the issues at Herod. With that structure, I have 2 administrators on Eaton Park here who are probably thinking what that does to us. I have a plan for them. My plan is that I feel like Herod is the place that we have to put some pride into the importance of public school in Abbeville. With the hospital being right there, I feel like that's where we need to do the beautification. I think we need to do new fencing. The prisoner fence in front needs to become something different. I think the trees need to be cut back. That is a beautiful area that we're not taking care of it. We're trying to take care of all kinds of schools. That's just my opinion. Remove the older portables, the renovation of the front with fencing and landscaping. Eaton Park, convert to a multifunctional education center for the district. When you go look at Eaton Park, and Lisa and Amber, y'all correct me if I'm wrong, but my vision would be when you walk in, that becomes the virtual Vermilion wing. Straight down the hallway, that's virtual Vermilion. That's where Homebound is housed. That's our virtual center. When you move to the left, it moves to the next hall. And actually, the portable buildings outside with the multi-purpose building would be where Alternative is housed. Outside, Alternative still has to do PE. They still have to be given that option. So that outside part, we could remove quite a few portable buildings. The early childhood clinic, which doesn't have an actual clinic space, would be able to utilize the gym as well as a wing of that school. And then my vision is to move child nutrition as its main office and warehouse. We went look at the Garin plant, which I just think is just too big, and to meet school code, I don't think it would work. But there's savings in buying bulk. And we have a freezer the size of that wall. But if we give them a whole area, the freezer could now be a lot larger, and there's savings in that. And that comes at a cost of, she has to have a spin down plan. She can renovate a current building. She can't build a new building. Is that correct, Mr. Turner? Is that?
Yes, sir.
That was accurate. And so it's one of those things that, it also takes the 18-wheelers out of the parking lot here. I mean, the design on here, our warehouse and 18-wheelers in the morning when people are coming to work, it's just not the best setup. 7th Ward, I don't have any changes to the facility. Ms. Marlene, you're here. Lisa, y'all have anything more? The Abbeville principals here. LeBlanc also have no changes. And understand, we've made some changes. We've added some things with ESSER monies. Go ahead.
While we're on LeBlanc for upgrades, what is the park line, apparent line?
I think
What's that
the
about?
solution she had actually worked. We may have to do a little bit of additional gravel. But we haven't heard any complaints since we made the adjustments.
The current situation is fine.
Yeah,
What are we looking into over there?
We're not looking into anything. She suggested something, but I disagree with it.
they turned it around. They moved the parking lot to the front semicircle and it's, cars are off the road and it's working. So, at this time, nothing. ERAF, the stadium upgrades, which we've already set the bid, additional portable building with 2 classrooms, which is an immediate, we've already had to start the process, but they will not have enough, they won't have room for their students next year. ERAF middle, no major changes, but we do need to prepare for the French immersion expansion, meaning there's some couple of things we have to do with French immersion. I think, they're pretty much landlocked. The only place they have left, we cut right through the backside of a city and eating area. Not real easy. Dozier, there's really not room for any major changes, but we need to upgrade and update the classroom setting because we've moved special education classes there. And so we've got to figure out what's the next step. But again, I think we need to go look at are there any other possibilities at Dozier? Without taking the front parking lot, we don't. ERAF High also, I need to probably add on there parking as well. They are parked way down the street. There's no parking lot there. Kaplan High, no building additions, and this is the one that's gonna, go ahead, Chris.
Going back to Dozier, when can we meet?
About what?
Looking at the facility.
Not this week, I'm doing these middle of the year evaluations, but no,
Okay.
all of these things, guys, I mean, I'm giving this to you, looking at it. I won't make any decisions.
We ain't gonna never make a decision
well,
if we're not
no.
gonna meet and look.
Well, let him call me and we'll go meet and look. I don't make the decisions. You call me and we'll go. I might answer your phone call. You didn't call me last week.
I know you don't.
So whatever, yeah, you're wrong. So,
You didn't answer last week.
it didn't come through. Kaplan High, no building additions. I am gonna sit here, and this is probably the one that people are gonna say, huh? But that's okay. It is my vision to upgrade as part of the Dan Dartez funding mechanism and turn Kaplan's football field with a turf field, number one, as the turf field which is available for district-wide use in emergency situations. It is the best facility. Now, it's not gonna be the only turf projected, but it's the one that I want to focus on as the District 1, because there's always a parking lot available at Kaplan High. There's always the largest stadium available at Kaplan High. Pee Wee football, move yourself, you're going to Kaplan High and you're not messing up fields. Soccer, it's one of our programs. But I just feel like, guys, we spent about $25,000, $30,000 this past year to be able to play and practice on turf fields in other parishes. I mean, this is the reality. I mean, we are way behind the times
Who pays for that?
on that, huh?
Who pays for that?
Dan Dartez,
The practice?
huh?
Say that again?
Where does
Practice, yeah.
Comes out the
What
general
you talking about? We spent the
None
practice.
of this is general fund. This is,
So, you said for us to go practice on turf
Turf
fields,
fields.
we spent 20 to 30.
no, we played and practiced, and anytime you go use those fields, it's another $2,500. We got soccer teams that go play in Clark Field.
So Who
We
pays
play
for that?
Como, the school.
Oh, okay.
The school. Renee Ross, no additions at this time to the school, unless Casey has any. And we need to make a decision on the old gym repairs. Still, we're meeting Thursday. Thursday, we do have the next phase of that inspection. Kaplan Elementary, under the current I'm sorry.
Before you move on, going back to Kaplan High briefly. Of course, the idea of a central field, we way behind, most probably by 25 years, give or take. Because many of the other parishes have designated fields for designated events. And they've been turf for many, many years. So we're trying to catch up. It's a good move. And if You gotta get to that point. Even with most of our recreation now, of course, that was all ESSER with, COVID and hurricanes and all, they're all turf fields now. Most of the baseball, softball fields are, the infields are turf. So yes, that would be an advantage for all of the parish, and you're just following.
And the second
criteria
thing
of
built
that
at the
field.
high school charter will be their turf field.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you that.
They're only gonna charge $8 million.
So, but Renee Ross, Captain Elementary, under the current configuration, there's no changes. There's some projects that I feel like could help that school. If we ever decide to move it to a K-5 configuration, you can't do it without adding a whole, another wing. It's not necessary because Renee Ross can house the 5-8. So just where we are. FIEB, no changes at this time. We did make some ESSER changes. We added a pavilion, we fixed the parking lot. So I don't get those calls anymore. Jesse Owens and Gaydon High add additional space if we decide to make GHS a K-12 combo. I would propose a modular classroom setup if it's necessary. The two principals have told me that they feel like it potentially could happen without. I feel like I would probably, if a modular would come available, one of the ones we have, or we find something, I feel like just to help keep a little bit of separation, I think it would be a smart move.
What do we do with the other facility?
Which, Jesse Owens? I don't, I mean,
Storage.
Well, you go if you, okay, I'm not gonna get on what I'm thinking, but, if the maintenance department and the busing would have been put in Kaplan in the middle of the parish, you wouldn't have people driving all the way from Erad to go fix a toilet in Gator, and it's a whole day affair. Plus, they like to go eat at the Cafe Fayette, but okay. But here you go. These things about what do you do with these facilities? Well, I can tell you right now, I love my community, but that building's not going anywhere but where it is. Unless something really big would come that way, which I doubt seriously. But it'd just be sitting, unfortunately, that's, you know, you could have some community use, I mean.
yeah, I
The
mean.
gym would still be used in the community.
So-
That's some-
Norfolk Million Area Cecil P. Card, as the enrollment goes, I feel like we need to start moving out some portables if it's not necessary to have them there. Again, I think we have to hold off on that until we see, the next wave of any defections and or if we get any influx from new neighborhoods. Yes, sir.
What do we do with the portables that we remove? If we don't put it, if we're not.
Some of
using
them we're
somewhere
renting,
else?
so we would take the ones we rent first and quit renting them.
Yeah, okay.
That's the first plan. I mean, there's a savings of money there. I think, Kevin, you had kind of looked at those numbers when we had asked and got that. We rent some, we own some. I mean,
Is there a
some of them
secondary
it's time,
market?
some of them it's time for them to just
Go.
be,
Go.
to go.
Yeah.
But again, I think we'd have to take an inventory of all of the portables we have in the district and figure out what we're
Make
doing
a
with it.
decision based on that, okay.
I think it's past time to do that.
Mo Elementary, no changes. If there's any hurricane school that got fixed the best, to make the best of a worse situation, it was Mo. I think they did a phenomenal job with the fix up on that school. Indian Bayou, outside fence work is one of the few things that and a covered bus drop off. Both of those were projects that were projected in ESSER, and both of them were ones got cut off. They both got left out. They were the last project triage. But Indian Bayou, the fence work outside, we're getting, as that area grows and it's a little out in the, we need to have a way to close down that school. I guess there's a lot of, that's a hard school to close down because it's easy to go in and go between buildings. Norfolk Million High, Norfolk Million Middle put as a combo. Renovation of the stadium concession bathroom phase 1, we're going with that project. That was part of the original Dan Dortez. There is conversation, and I'm just gonna put that out there, that the school will have to make a decision. They have reached out when we started talking about turf fields, doing that instead of the weight room addition. Probably not a terrible idea because they play boys soccer, they play girls soccer, it's the most utilized. I just wouldn't wanna make it the it's available to the parish. But I wouldn't wanna make it the fallback, because what people don't understand is that anytime you ever go to North Vermillion, there's 7 activities going on. Between the high school and the middle school, the parking lot is never empty. It's not. I mean, you have art programs, you have band programs at 2 schools sharing a parking lot. And so, I'm not saying, I mean, it can be prep, but on a whim, 30 minutes from now, we need to move our game. That's not, we can go to Kaplan if it's available. So that's that phase. No other changes depending on the effects of Vermillion Shore High School. I think eventually we'll be able to move some of those portable buildings out, depending on what happens there. And we'll kind of go from there. This is the facility triage. It's not in your package, and I just want to kind of, we talked about the Dan D'Artes Fund. We had Sean come. We have excess revenues, and we've been talking about, because the old guard of we're gonna have enough oil money, and then we're gonna build something, that doesn't happen anymore. That doesn't happen. None of you can run your house without borrowing money. Well, I mean, some of you might be able to, but my point is, we have no debt. Okay? We've looked at plans, we brought in people to tell us, if we borrow $25 million, what is that note to pay back? That note ranged from 1.4 million to 1.8 million, depending on what we would choose as the length of period. 500,000 of that is already there from Dan D'Artes. I honestly believe that we can budget $1.2 million from oil and gas, excess tax revenue, all of those things to work on a note for the things that we need if we decide to move forward with some of these projects. The Dan D'Artes commitments, I am looking at ballparking around 6.8 million. ERAS facility upgrades, about 1.5 million. A little bit money left from where we are. North Vermillion, we projected, if you remember our original conversation, that was the facility that the school board has never put money in. That was the one facility that the stadium money was never put in there. The only thing ever put there was a track that didn't last very long. Abbeville High Gym, and this Abbeville High Gym project is part of that. I also want to spend money at the J.H. Williams Stadium entrance. That stadium entrance needs to be fixed for security purposes, because it's everybody in an area this big. It needs to be better light, it needs to be a better setup, and so I would like to dedicate some there. The Kaplan High Turf Field, about 1.6 million. But in that project, I will let you know, I've also got a price on that. But we also looked at the changing our lights to LED while they're there, and doing it saves us a whole lot of money. And so those are those projects. Again, I can't move forward with any of these. We move forward on 2. We move forward on the ERAS concession. We're moving forward on the North Vermillion concession. I'll be coming back as soon as he gets me those plans. The other facility upgrades. This is Tommy Viola's opinion, but that's only if I've made all the decisions about where we are. We need a Herod office in the classroom addition. Because here's my thing. If I'm going to combine and close a school and move kids in Abbeville, I'm not moving kids to put them in portable buildings in the back of a building. We're going to take pride in figuring out this is our Abbeville Elementary School. Let's go with it. That's just my opinion. The Eaton Park Educational Center, a little bit of money to figure out how can we divide and make the entrances proper. Modular building for Gaydon, if we had to purchase that, if we don't have anything. I am going to study, and you might as well shoot me down, but I want to look at potential performing arts center. I feel like our district leads the way in the arts programs. I feel like our bands, our choruses, and we are locked into one place and one place only. And I feel like we need to look at it. I may get a price back and say, no, not happening. But I feel like it's something we need to look at. Now,
Be a good building in Gaydon.
they have an auditorium. They know that. Gaydon does have an auditorium, not many people know that. Our arts person this week found out and said, we need to move some things over there. I feel like, I mean, again, I wanna just look at a cost, location, whatever. I'm gonna bring that back to you guys. If that's something we decide, hey, let's move forward. Again, all conversation for you guys to have your own little committee meetings and say, hey, let's consider moving forward on this. Other facility triage, again, one of the last slides I did, so I probably have a few more that I forgot. Again, shoot me some ideas. Audience, anything that you can think of that should be listed on that list immediately. Yes, ma'am.
Parking lot
Parking lots.
and drainage. Former parking lots, so we don't swim.
Okay. That's being recorded, so. We do have some parking lot issues at a couple of places. We've made some adjustments. I mean, got the front fixed, we added, Abbeville got their fixed, FIAB got parts fixed. I think that's a very good suggestion that we just need to put on there. Transportation, that building, maintenance, that building.
I got no complaint.
Lonnie, is it too far to go to Gaydon for a career campus?
No. It would be, it'd be a stretch, you know, having to go after and get them back for bus ride, so.
That's what I was thinking.
But we are looking for the Career and Tech Center to expand that and find a place that, we need to move it from its current location in the sense of it's just not a good setup. As again, as accountability changes, we'll have to look at that.
Jesse Owens has a lot of room.
It does. So, yes, sir.
Coach, that property that's where our transportation east of us, who owns that property?
Not us.
If we could have spread that property out, we don't really have much room to put our buses.
You have plenty of room in Jesse Owens. I mean, Crystal will be a lot closer. So, no, I think,
really, if we had to house, a lot of our buses are at schools that don't have fencing, well, y'all fixed a lot of that, but.
the Eaton Park Educational Center's got plenty of room on the side and the back. And when I move some of those portables out, there's plenty of
Really?
room. Yes, sir.
Park the buses back there?
Yes, sir. On that backside, because that parking lot's not gonna be used, in my vision. I don't know, we'll look at it, different things. So, the next session is the financial concerns. You have it, and I'm not gonna spend a super amount of time, but I wanted to share this with you, and I don't know, you didn't get this copy till today on this one. This is the cost analysis per student, the utility cost of our current facilities, our personnel costs, and then potential changes in funding and revenue and expenses. This is the sky-high version of finances where we are. On each of these, and again, I'm not gonna read them all, but in each list, you have the current enrollment, October 1, the total staff at that school, the total teaching staff, the other staff, meaning paras, cafeteria, years experience, average years experience, cost for personnel, the cost per student, the adult to student ratio, and the adult to teacher ratio. You have the sheet, and so they may not be able to see it, sorry about that, but, so when I look at our Abbeville schools, when you look at the total 1,931 students, we have 280.9 staff members for 1,931 students. We have 164 of those are teachers, 116 are other. We do have a larger number of paras in the Abbeville schools, based on law. The total number of years of experience in Abbeville is 3,356. The average experience in Abbeville is 11.9 years. Not an old group. It costs us $11.79 million for personnel in Abbeville. The cost per student is about $6,100 per student. There's an adult to student ratio of 1 adult for every 6.87 students. Teacher to student ratio, when I put teacher student ratio, don't get caught up in that. That is certified personnel to students. There is a certified personnel or a certified position, not all certified, for every 11.6 kids in Abbeville. And you'll see the comparisons later. ERAF, I'm just giving you total, 2,096 students, 202 total staff, 135 teachers, only 67 others. Again, when you're going to see the big discrepancy in others, the majority of that is special ed paras. Areas that have a large population of special ed are going to have a para. Experience 3,024. Average experience in ERAF is 14.9 years. That's where our elder people are. Personnel costs $9.3 million. Cost per student in ERAF $41.79. Pretty solid across the board for ERAF. Adult to student ratio is 1 adult for every 10 kids. Teacher certified person is 15.48. That's the highest in our district in ERAF. Kaplan Schools, just hitting the highlights, 119 teachers in Kaplan Schools, 80 other. Average experience 13.85, $8.47 million. Cost per student in Kaplan is right about $4,900. We have 1 adult for every 8 students and 1 certified adult for every 14 students. Jesse Owens, and again, this is one of the reasons I feel like when you're looking at bang for your buck, it is out of necessity. Total staff, 370 kids, 62. Total staff, 37 teachers, 24 other. 951 years, 15.34 years experience. $2.75 million is what it costs to run our 2 Gueydan schools personnel. It's a relatively small number. The cost per student is $7,400. It's $8,000 per kid in Gueydan, $6,700 in at Jesse Owens. The adult to student ratio is one adult for every 5.96 kids. Teacher student ratio, 1 adult for every 9.93 kids. Combining that, I think you would see some shrinkage there of exterior staff. The North Vermilion schools, 2,400 students, 260 total staff, 165 teachers, 95 other, 14.32 years average experience. Personnel costs us $11.52 million. Cost per student, $47.37. North Vermilion High at $37.14 is the lowest in the district, which obviously makes sense. The more kids you put in a school, the cheaper it is per student that you're spending. Adult to student ratio 1:9, teacher student ratio 1:14.6. I'm not going to go over all this and you have questions, but this is by community. Gave you by community. You can see. Abbeville has 1,931 people. We spent $11.79 million. We spend more money on 1,900 students than we spend in 2 other districts, 2 other areas with more students. And so some of it is out of necessity, but I feel like we have to look at our total cost in some of those. Some of that's because we're running extra schools. This is high school by enrollment. I went from highest to lowest, and you can see how it trends down. My principals are going to look at this, and they're going to come back and bite me on this when we go to staffing, because they're going to all come back to this, and they're going to be like, "Oh, but hold up." Like, I already know Capitol High is coming and saying, "Hold up, why ERAF got 1.1 more teachers than us?" And I'm going to say, because they have 30 more students than you. But you can see some of the places. The bang for the buck is not all there in some of our schools. Middle schools, I gave you the same thing. Elementaries, I gave you the same thing. I'm not going to bore you that, but I want you to be able to look at that in process as we're looking at potential savings. High school by enrollment, middle school by, I messed that up. I'll put those again. Personnel costs. I just want you to understand, I know people are concerned, hey, we have charter schools coming in, we're looking. In 21-22, we spent $54,356,854 on personnel. Our retirement rate was 24.5%. So take 54 times 24.5, that's how much of our budget goes into salaries and benefits. That's not even the insurance costs, correct, Mr. Johnson? 22-23, the number went up to 55,138. It's the first time we had COVID contracts. We had COVID money, but our total went up. Retirement was 24.8. 23-24, we had COVID contracts again, went up a little bit more. 24-25, I want you to see then in 24-25, our personnel cost is $53,698,000, and that's with about a $2.8 million addition since 21-22 for a $1,500 across the board raise. We have cut between bus drivers, janitors, cafeteria, teachers, we've cut about 95 to 100 employees based on the numbers that are happening. So I don't want people, when we start looking at some potential changes, the numbers are matching what we have in place. We haven't padded any numbers. We have done fiscally super with the board saying, hey, do what you need to do. Here's what we need to have. The retirement rate this year is 21.5, which is going to save us a little, which is going to help offset the loss, some of the loss of charter enrollment. The lower personnel costs and lower tax rates going to offset some of the MFP. The proposed 25-26 tax rate is 20.95%. In March, the governor has called for a one-time payment on the accrual, which if that happens, then the retirement rate will then for us be 15 to 16%. The money saved from the 21% to the 15 to 16%, that money will have to be allocated to a permanent $1,000, $2,000 pay raise, which currently is stipend, which currently is at the mercy of the legislature. It's kind of a funky deal because it's our money and they're telling us how we have to spend it. It's not going to cover the cost of the raises because we have to put it in the salary schedule, which means indexed employees are going to get a little bit more. It doesn't cover our pre-K teachers. It doesn't cover, we're going to be close. Actually, the thing I got to say, well, about 200,000 excess is what we will have. But that goes to a vote March. If it doesn't pass, we go back to 20.95% retirement. Still saves us a little bit of money, but if it goes to 15, 16, you're looking at a large chunk of savings, which a large portion of that goes back into the permanent. It won't be a MFP stipend. It'll go on the original part of the pay scale. So if that passes, you people who are within 1 or 2 years of retirement, you can give me 3 more years so you can get your 3 highest years. So I'm just thank you for warning you now. So Lonnie, you go. So this is our utilities cost. I wanted to share this with you because I don't think people have any clue. I do know this, that some of our towns are making a bundle off of us. When I look at Abbeville, we're paying $250,000 a year for utilities in Abbeville. J.H. Williams, $152,000. Harrod, $104,000. Eaton Park, $94,000. 7th Ward, $72,000. Central Office, $123,000. Our garbage collection for the district is $147,000 a year. Dozier, $50,000. LeBlanc, $103,000. EMS, $68,000. Erath High, $106,000. Henry Plant, $18,000. The telephones cost us $56,190. Kaplan Elementary, $97,000. FIB, $85,000. Renee Ross, $113,000. Kaplan High, $171,000. Jesse Owens, $29,000. Gaydon, $61,000. Cecil Picard, $87,000. Indian Bayou, $34,000. Moe, $58,000. North Vermilion, $104,000. North Vermilion High, $126,000. About $2.42 million a year for utilities. That number actually has come down. We were about 2.55 about 2 years ago. We've tried to make some conscious decisions. We've bumped up the door raise controls about 1 degree and nobody noticed. Now, the cyber attack didn't mess us up because we don't have control from the outside, but anything on personnel costs, utilities, cost per area, anyone?
Hopefully you'd rather come down a little bit, but we won't see it for a little while. We're building our own plant.
So, revenue concerns for me, MFP reduction from charter schools, $5 to $8 million a year in MFP funds is a loss possible. That's the current, it could be more with the high school. Oil and gas fluctuations, not budgeted, but it's a source of revenue. Anytime you get political change and political wins, sometimes things go for the good, sometimes they go for the bad. Again, we'll see where that goes. Property tax millages. Just gonna let you know out there, in 2026, we have a 10 mil renewal. In 2028, we have a 25 mil renewal. Those are both renewals, and we're gonna have to, probably in the next 2 months, we're gonna be bringing to you the information that we need to go. Eric will need to get the information from Foley and Judell to go for this first one. And in 2028 is the big one. 2028 doesn't happen. This vision becomes quick reality. And our schools will have to be filled to the gill. And there's gonna be a lot of places that, and we will have to cut teacher pay $4,000 to $5,000. They ain't none of them staying. It's not happening. And so I feel like we gotta work hard on that. Expenses concerns, the cyber network upgrade and Chromebook maintenance, it's cost us some money. We bought a lot of technology with ESSER money. Now it's to figure out plans to maintain it. Curriculum is moving to digital subscriptions. A lot of those subscriptions were paid with ESSER. How do we sustain that? We're gonna have to come up with plans. The safety upgrades, I think you guys have made a great investment, but we're gonna still have to budget some more money to finish the projects we started. And a reorganization of personnel. And I'm gonna present this to you and may get some looks, but that's okay. Because I do know this. And having a conversation, and Dr. Dupree may not remember this conversation, but the conversation was, come tell us what you need, not what you want. The new accountability system, Vermilion Parish will no longer be an A district. We will have 2 A schools, we will have 4 D schools, but the majority of our schools will be Cs. Same test, same protocols, different system. The state said, it's time to change the system. We are going to be in competition. Based on that, we've got to put some things in place to help our schools. The new evaluation system. These principals can tell you, it is a task. We went from a system that had 6 components that you could probably go in, watch a couple of things, and figure it out, to 24. With now potential 3 observations, a coaching cycle, and everything else. Our singleton principals are going to need, I don't think it's an assistant at every place, but I'm going to have somebody who can help be an evaluator at all of our places, and I think our principals will agree with that. And then based on the changing scope of statewide initiatives, this is not the same school system. It's not, and we have to be competitive. So these are organizational changes. Again, conversations. Some could start in my tenure. Majority will start as I walk out and ride off into the sunset. But because, like I told you, a new accountability, a new evaluation system, operational efficiencies. I think you guys made a commitment to our operations when we went with Lean Frog and got a lot of great ideas. You may not see all of them, they're in place. I'm not against potentially hiring them again to look at some other things, but this is our current setup. We have a superintendent, an assistant superintendent, and a CFO. That is our top layer of an executive team. We don't have enough layers for us to be good at anything. I feel like we can't help our principals get better. We can't work on operations and we're putting these things in place, but who is managing those? Who is making sure that, and so in the future, and again, this is Vision 2030, I feel like we need a superintendent. I think we need 1 assistant superintendent. And I feel like we need a chief academic officer, a chief operations officer, and a chief financial officer. That 5 make up the team. I know that the director word is a dirty word to some of you. I feel like we've proven ourselves. My vision would be to do it with this first, but if we don't get better at accountability and the rubric and the leads evaluations, that could be an additional, not at that level, but underneath. Human resources, a different, right now, our assistant superintendents are like, have 9 different people, departments underneath them. And with changes, it's not effective. This is a model that's in most places now. It's very similar to what we had before. Looking at our secondary supervisor level. Currently, we have a high school supervisor. I feel like we need to keep that. We have a CTE supervisor. Upon Mr. Lonnie's retirement, that job will more than likely move to a CTE facilitator. Meaning, just a notch down, but it opens the pool for potential people. We have another high school supervisor. Yes, sir.
Question. So is there a difference in salary between a supervisor and a facilitator?
Yes,
What, so,
about
okay.
1.14%.
All right. So where would you find all of these different,
They're already there. We already have these people.
where would I find them? My question to you is, where would I see a supervisor versus a facilitator? versus
In places that I feel that we don't need a supervisor. I think the job has changed, but job titles have just stayed the same.
Okay, so there's really no
Like,
significant change.
There is significance, because everywhere you see green is a cut in salary.
Well, I mean,
It's-
what you said?
0.14, some of them is even less than that. We have a high school supervisor that's the 3rd highest paid person in our district. When that person goes away, we need a graduation and accountability coach. Straight up. Middle school supervisor we have, elementary supervisor we stay the same, arts and language stays the same, SPED, CWA, early childhood, all of those positions are necessary. The tech supervisor, where we originally were talking about potentially a director, I have now gone complete 180, and I think we need a tech facilitator. Because we made a commitment to Techno, and I just need somebody who can order, organize, and manage. I feel like there's a savings, what that job needs to do now after we're paying Techno. I feel like it's a changing scope. The facilities manager is only called a manager because they named it that a few years ago, and I think that was, for some reason, I'll leave it at that. Technology is actually a manager too. Child nutrition, that's an outside person need. Transportation. The virtual supervisor, I don't think the virtual supervisor down the road as virtual kind of settles. I think there could be a restructuring of the virtual supervisor where it may not have to be one. Or add some things to that plate upon the next person taking over. The CIS supervisor, which is Ms. Joyce does, that would also become a facilitator. So there's a little bit of savings in different places, but I feel like that's, and with the people, that's just at the supervisory level. I feel like those are some changes that can be made through attrition as we move forward. The school level leadership, and this is one that again, currently right now, elementary, middle, and high school, they all have a principal. Elementary, middle, and high, we have some with 0 AP, some with 1 AP, some with 2 APs. High school, middle schools all have 1 or 2, high schools all have 1 or 2. I feel like we need to come up with a little bit more of a standards. I feel like we need to kind of look at some of those things. Currently, there's no set rhyme or reason why we have a disciplinarian in elementary. It's out of necessity, but I think we need to take a long, hard look at what we're doing in elementary. Currently in middle school, they all have a disciplinarian now, and it's been one of the best things that we've done. High schools, only one school has a designated disciplinarian, meaning it is a position for a disciplinarian. Currently, we only have one. Instructional coaches, the only instructional coaches we have in elementary are at schools that receive Title I funding. It's none of it's paid out of general fund. Middle school, there's no set pattern. Again, most of those are paid out of title funds. High school, we have no instructional coaches at the school level. It is my opinion that as we move forward, we need a principal at every school. I kept the APs, but I'm being straight up honest. I feel like all of our elementary, middle, and high schools, elementaries, there's some numbers for some that I don't think they need a full-time AP, but I think the old practice of you teach half a day, you AP half a day, which is an old practice, I think would work again. I think it would work again.
Ms. Taylor?
I don't know if you're getting your future for this.
This is the future one, this one. This is it changed. I changed it on you.
Oh, okay.
So, disciplinarians at the elementary, I still think it's up in there by necessity. Middle school, I think everyone needs a disciplinarian. High school, I think everyone needs a disciplinarian. I think every middle school needs an instructional coach housed on their campus. I am going to be proposing that. Reason being, we have to figure out the middle school game in accountability. Yes, sir.
Many moons ago, begged for this. Begged for curriculum coaches on every campus. And you know where we'd be today. The Singletons, they need assistant principals. Because those principals are doing the jobs of some of these 8 people, 4 people, 2 people.
I think that in conversations, Dr. Duke, we have actually asked that question as they come in for their evaluations. Like, what do you think? I mean, I've had one tell me an instructional coach. I had one tell me an AP. I feel like we need to take a long look at that half teacher, half AP, which was a thing. It was a thing, and you're just supplementing somebody who can also do evaluations. Is what it comes down to. It's too much. I mean, it is too much.
I thought.
I want an instructional coach at every middle school. My vision for the district is not an instructional coach at every high school to start. I want one who's housed with us, who is going out, because I feel like this. Middle schools have been prepping for that, and they have a lot of people here already who are working with them. I think they can accept it. High schools have never had an instructional person come in and say, we got to get our kids to mastery. I don't want to put people in there to set them up to fail. And so the request is going to be, as we move forward, is put one and put the feelers out. How do we stick them in there? That's kind of where we are with that. I'll take questions. I see some people out there with questions. Megan, I know I see your thought questions, so go ahead. Good.
So you're telling me that one AP in middle school, that's not happening until 2030?
No, that could happen sooner than that, based on numbers. But with an instructional coach and a disciplinarian. Now, I'll be honest, I am going to be proposing an adjustment to the stipend for APs at elementary schools make less than 90% of our coaches. Don't make no sense to me, okay? I feel like I want to bump up our instructional assistant principals because we have some people who are great curriculum people who make the jump to be principals because it's a bump in pay. And they're better instructional people, and those are hard to find. And so I want to kind of bump that one, and I want to bump our disciplinarians to what our normal elementary middle school assistants make. And so I'm going to bring that whole package to you guys. But do you have, I know you had another question.
So the instructional coach would be teacher?
Huh?
Teacher pay? Instructional coach?
No.
But not assistant principal?
It wouldn't be an assistant principal pay. It would be probably a 10-month, yeah. Don't worry, Miss Megan, I got you.
Thought for you. With all this wonderful evaluation, maybe you could contract retired principals, retired assistant principals who are certified, just as a thought.
So,
Maybe-
that
maybe
thought
can
has
save
come
money.
across, I'll be honest with you, I think that's a few years down the road, David, only because I need these to learn it.
Yes.
I need them to get efficient with it and not just, but I think there's some areas that we can help in. So, tried to say an hour and a half, that would be the goal, but. Other questions, I still wanna go operational and curriculum shifts, that's gonna come at another time. Any questions, answers, anything? Yes, sir.
Mr. Abraham?
What's your vision for your future?
For whose future?
Yours. How long you staying?
Yeah,
You giving us this 30
yeah,
projection, who's coming behind you? What is your,
I'm starting year 34. I have a daughter who's a sophomore in high school, figure it out. As long as I can do my job and keep working, I mean, I wanna see a lot of things through. Obviously, right now, earnings potential is greater elsewhere, but I'm not finished the job I started here. There's some things I wanna see through. But I also wanna put things in place and leave it better than when I got it. I told that to all the principals. Public education is a major crossroads. And for me to run now doesn't make sense. Okay? I do know that when I gave you that time, and we'll let you guys know, I do feel that the next person probably needs a little bit of training time. I would not advise being a principal on a Friday and a superintendent on a Tuesday. I mean, I was able to do it because we were in the middle of COVID and hurricanes and things just kind of happened. But in a normal situation, I feel like that person, because it's a changing scope, it's a changing scope. As we look at some of these things, when can we move towards some of these things? I will let you know that in 2 years, I mean, I will be the president of the State Superintendent's Association in 2 years. I will be sitting at the table in Baton Rouge fighting often. And I will be here, but it's crucial that the people I have in place can do the job that we need to do. Because I'm gonna fight for public education until I walk out. And so, there's no answer to that, Mr. Abear. When my wife tells me I can retire, we will retire.
I know what the answer to that is. Any other board members? Audience?
I got a question.
Sure.
Mr. Rosen?
So who puts this in place? Like,
I think the next conversation that I have with the board members is asking them for, tell me what was any worth, tell me where we wanna go. Some of this is already in place. There are things that are in place. There are gonna be some things that I'm gonna come to in staffing, that I'm gonna like slow pace it. I'm gonna come to them in staffing with some things. But I want them to understand why I'm coming to them in staffing. If they tell me in staffing we're not ready to do that yet, they wanna wait and see what the numbers do, that's fine. I will push some of this, they will push some of this. They will have to make decisions of where we wanna go. I mean, so
you're leaving it in the board's hands?
I don't make decisions.
You don't recommend?
I do recommend
So what's gonna be your number one recommendation?
that they go through and look at the packet and bring me back any questions they have and tell me which direction we wanna go.
Fair enough. Any other questions? Okay, thank you, Mr. Byer. Excellent, as always. Just to remind you, this is just discussion. This is not setting goal. Don't want you running out the door saying, golly, they're gonna do this and the board's gonna do that. No, please be reminded, this is just discussion. Do I have a motion to adjourn? I have a motion, do I have a second? Mr. Abear, meeting adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
I was taking notes and I didn't know. How's this going?